Hey, Tom here, FlipAnything USA. So on my channel, I share how I made my fortune in real estate. Start with one deal at a time, and I share that on my channel. And started at 19, been doing it for 40 years. So look, today we're going to take a look at Dave Ramsey. He is someone that is, he's a financial advisor. I think he's kind of a basic common sense guy. I get this going here behind me. So here's Dave Ramsey. We're totally at odds, and you're going to see why. Look, I've made tens of millions of dollars in real estate. If I waited till I could pay cash for a piece of real estate, I wouldn't have the fortune that I have today. And we're going to get into that and why I think his advice is so terrible. And I haven't watched any of Dave Ramsey until this is actually the first one I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen him over the years, but never has anything he started to say that ever really got me excited, made me want to watch a lot of them, or much of them at all. I mean, the books way back and everything else. But anyways, I'm figuring them out. But I just watched a little bit of this video, and I thought this is terrible advice, and I'd hate for anybody to take it as good advice, because it's not good advice in my opinion. And so we're going to get into that. So hang on. All right. So anyhow, hey, before we get rolling here, if you're new to the channel, I've been doing this for a long time. Real estate's my game. You should subscribe if you can. Those of you, if you would, I appreciate you if you subscribe. It's a personal favor to me. It gives me some feedback, lets me know that you like the content that you see here. So pound that subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot, and it definitely lets me know that you like what you hear. And if you ever want to argue, you want to call up, I'll take on anybody. You want to talk about anything about real estate. If you got anything you oppose on my views, I'm happy to fight for how I believe in what I think. So let's get started watching Dave, and here we go.
Texas. Hi, Kevin. Welcome to the Dave Ramsey Show.
Hey, Dave. Good to talk to you. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. What's up?
My question is about buying a house. My wife and I are saving up for a down payment on a home, and I've been listening to you for a little while, but I'm pretty new, and I know we are debt-free, and we have an emergency fund fully funded. My question is, we both currently work full-time, and so how much house should I kind of look to buy based upon our incomes? And here's the deal. She's going to graduate school for a couple years, starting in the fall. She's going to get a counseling degree, and that'll mean our total income will drop for a little bit while she's going to school. We're going to pay for that in cash, but then she's going to make more money, most likely. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed later. And so my question is, should we buy a house according to that 25% rule that you have off of our...
So right off the bat, he said he has his emergency fund. Now, I think that's a key word that would be connected to Dave. Basically, have some savings, save for a rainy day. It's always good to have. You got to have a little cash. I always tell you, look, you got to have money on hand. You got to be able to weather some storms for sure. But one of the main things is that's your seed capital. That's how you get going. So you got to have some money. But the other thing is, he said his girlfriend or his fiance is. Oh, let me get Darius in here too. So I've got Darius with me too. Let me get him in the picture here real quick. The first thing that I thought of is, get your house. Of course, get a house right now, because right now he can claim two incomes. Right now he's got two incomes with his fiance, and they're talking about buying, but she's going to go away. Well, as soon as she goes away, he no longer is he's not going to qualify for as much house as he wants. He may not even qualify for a house at all. You know what I mean? It may be the difference of not being able to afford a home, completely, if he doesn't take advantage of finding something to buy right now, while he still can. Darius, where's it? Okay, here we go. Oh man, it's not in here, Darius. You're not coming up. Yeah. Check your phone. Oh well.
Well,
anyways,
just tell everybody hi.
All right. Yeah, well, here, I got Darius over here. Anyways, he's in here. He's listening. He's chatting with y'all. But anyways, so the big thing I see here right now is this guy's got an opportunity that he can afford something. It's like anybody that's going into business for themselves. I tell you, if they've, they work for a few years, they got an established job, they're about to take the plunge, become self-employed. I say, well, you better buy the house you want to buy right now. Anything you want to buy, you need finance. You need to do it right now while you have a job and you're bankable, because you're not going to be bankable soon after. So let's keep watching.
Current income off of our income during those 2 years, which is when we'll buy a house where she's in school, or more along the lines of a conservative estimate of what we'll be making together after she graduates?
Oh, probably the middle of those three, which is probably where you are right now, right?
Yeah, she's about to stop working full-time and work part-time.
Yeah, and so where you are today, if you took 25% of that, here's the point of the 25%. It's not magic. The point is, long-term, over the next 5 or 10 years, if you have a house payment that eats up all of your income, you have no money. That's how deep.
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about rent. Okay, you got to live somewhere. You're going to spend some money to live somewhere. So it's really not the right questions. But and he's not considering, what do you pay rent as opposed to buying a house. But let's keep listening.
Deep the 25% is, okay? Because people will go, you can get qualified for a loan that's 50% of your take-home pay, and you can't even breathe. You can get qualified for a loan that's 35% of your take-home pay, easily. And then you have trouble funding your car replacement fund, your 401k, your kid's college fund, because you become increasingly house poor. Now, what you're describing is...
Okay, so Dave is making the assumption that every bit of money you make, you need to save. You need to take it from your job, because that's what he's saying. He goes, you got to have your 501k, you've got to have your college fund for your kids, you got to have, well, guess what? Real estate is where you get all that funded, at your investment in real estate. That's why I write checks for college tuition. I write checks for cars. I write checks for houses, okay? Those kinds of expenses are small to me, and it's all because of real estate. It's all because of the money I've made on real estate. So, but we'll keep listening here a little more.
Is a temporary situation, not a permanent situation. So if someone calls me up and their house payment's 50% of their take-home pay because one of them just got laid off in the coronavirus, well, that's not what we're talking about. You would just hang on through that because you're going to get your payback and afterwards, and you're going to be okay in the house. So it's not a...
So I don't know why he assumes that a house is going to take 50% of your paycheck. I mean, it's just rather presumptuous that he thinks that this guy is going to spend half his income on a house, or and because what's he paying rent now? I mean, that's what you look at. I mean, and so I would tell this gentleman, number one, get a house that, is to say it's comparable to your rent. You've got some money put away. If you've got your emergency fund, you could even get into that too, possibly part of it. I mean, I don't know completely all your resources are. I mean, I really never had anybody to back me up, but I can tell you what I did is when I got into real estate, I now had an average asset that I was leveraged into. I was paying as much rent as I was paying when I bought it. When I bought a property, it was cheaper for me to buy it, actually. And that was when that's the other thing, is that's when interest rates were 9 to 10%. My first property I bought, I was paying 10% interest. Now, the mortgage wasn't going down very fast. Well, big deal. That's okay, because I've got the entire asset. I'll give you an example. I put 10 grand down, I got a $110,000 asset. Well, that asset's going up on average about 8% a year. So I'm making damn near $8,000 a year, which is almost everything that I'm paying rent, because I was paying $1,000 a month mortgage. And so the $1,000 a month mortgage I'm paying, I'm getting 80% of it back in the form of reducing what I owe. And that's because I'm buying it. Otherwise, I'd just be giving it to a landlord, and he'd be putting that money in his pocket, and he would be paying down the building, and I would be sitting there losing all of that. And so you're not going to recover your rent. The only way you recover your rent is if you rent from yourself, meaning if you buy it. So I really have a problem where he's going with this. Let's keep watching.
It's not a snapshot of a moment in time. It's a concept that over the scope of the next decade, it's going to be very hard for you to avoid debt and prosper if your house payment's eating up all of your income. That's really what
Listen, it's not a very good narrative, okay? He's making the assumption that this is going to take all this guy's money. I mean, the question should be, what percentage of your income is taken right now by your rent? And then compare that to if you purchase a place. Because that's the big question. How is it different? How is it going to cost you month to month? Is it going to be any different? And you got other write-offs and things, and plus you're building income. The other thing is, if he waits 6, 7 years, 10 years, when his fiance gets out of school, guess what? Properties are probably going to cost more. Okay, they may very well cost more. She will be a brand new worker. They're not going to have the same credibility as they probably have today, where they both have been working for a while. They got work history behind them. So let's listen with what else he has to say.
What it comes down to. And so if you kind of said, okay, the low point of your income is while she's in grad school, the high point of your income is after she gets out, and the medium point is kind of where you are right now, all I did was just say, hey, maybe where you are right now is maybe a good measure of that. It'll be a little bit of a strain while she's in grad school, and then there'll be almost no strain later when she gets out, and you'll be able to do a whole bunch of other stuff, and you won't be house poor. If you did it based on the...
Look at this house poor. I have a problem with this house poor. Listen, I've been land rich, I've been house rich, I've been apartment building rich, I've been just real estate rich. Or you can say a little bit land poor, but not really. I mean, I've stuck my neck out at different times, but that's one of the reasons that you leverage when you're younger. When you get older, that's when you got to start worrying about, do I want to leverage as much? Do I really care if this property is going to be paid off when I'm 90? I don't care anymore. I'm not worried about that. I can leave quite a bit of debt, as long as the debt to worth ratio is less than 20% of the assets that have accumulated. Because right now it's terrible. Right now people they feel like they've achieved something if their kids don't have to spend money to bury them. Okay, that's not my mindset at all. I mean, I want to leave enough money when I'm behind that I'll be the grandkids or the great grandkids will be thanking me. I know a lot of you can't think that far ahead, but guess what? If you try to pay cash for everything, that's exactly, you're not even going to be able to have that dream, because unless you just happen to have a job that pays $1 million a year or something like that, which even that could be nothing compared to what you'd make in real estate, because with real estate, like say you accumulate wealth. And then right now you have the ability to take those gains that you make in real estate and defer them into bigger and better properties that bring more and more income. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think of Dave Ramsey? Some of you probably follow him. I'm sure all of you are more familiar with him than I am. But yeah. Oh, hey, Tina. Yeah, Tina. So Tina's a good example. Tina just bought a property and she made some money on it. That's the other thing. You're not going to make any money on real estate if you don't buy it. And, so look, and by the way, I better take a second to plug my book. So I got a book. Wake Up and Smell the Real Estate. Been a bestseller on Amazon and Kindle. Basically, it's my story from the time I started, 19 years old, and I've accumulated a lot of money over the years, and I continue to buy property. And so also, just the basic, what Dave's missing is the money is made on the debt. When I borrow money, I make, just a little example here. If I make 6%, let's say I buy something for $1 million, and he's talking about houses, so I'm talking about an investment, so it isn't quite, but we'll talk about houses for a second. I buy a house, and let's just say I'm just barely touching the mortgage. Maybe it's almost interest only, but it's costing me the same amount to live in a place that I'm owning as one that I would rent. The difference is I'm getting the benefit of the appreciation of values going up. Okay, and whatever little I'm paying down on the principal, I'm reducing. I mean, that's the bank's hedges. They see you reducing your debt. So it's just, that's, if you want to make money in real estate, Dave Ramsey is not the guy to listen to. And I think he says he loves real estate, but he loves to pay cash for it. And listen, when I pay cash for a property, it's to come and steal it and take it away. But you can bet I'll be borrowing against that real estate at another date to buy more property. So let's let him finish up. He didn't have too much more. I got a little bit.
Anticipated income, basically we're saying until she gets her new job and her career blossoms off the new job, off of grad school, until then you're probably not going to make much progress financially because you're putting it all in a house payment. Does that make sense?
No, doesn't. Because he's making the assumption that a house payment is going to be greater than rent.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So what period of time do you want to be house poor? Oh, and how old are you?
We're both 30.
And how many kids?
Listen, you're so late. If you're 30 years old and you don't have a house, get your ass in gear. You're missing out.
Kids have you got?
0 kids.
No kids. Okay. You plan on having children?
Yes, we will have a couple kids.
Okay.
Lord willing.
What do you think the probability is you move?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I
Yeah.
wouldn't spend the next 5 years I wouldn't spend the next 5 years straining on a house payment based on the income target 5 years from now in order to own a house that I'm probably not going to live in after I have kids.
Yes.
Why strain? It's just not. It's a temporary thing, and so
It's just too presumptuous of Dave here to say that they're going to strain. I don't get it at all. I mean, you listen. You could buy. I mean, the old people buy a duplex and they rent out one half, and that's actually cheaper than renting. I mean, everybody's talked about that for many years. I generally the first 4 or 5 houses that I bought, I never even lived in, because because I would live inside the building. The first building I bought, I guess I did live in the building that I owned, but I lived in a building that I owned. Building I bought when I was 19. But I started buying up houses all around me. And by the time I was 28, I was already a millionaire, and that was 30 years ago. So, this guy's got to get in gear. But, okay, so what do we got? People writing in here. Sierra, Ramsey offers solid advice for employees, not investment advice. Well, I'm not sure what the difference is. I mean, I follow what you're saying. He's got some common sense stuff. Yeah. Don't spend more than you can afford. Save your money. That's good stuff. But it's certainly not investment advice necessarily. Dave Ramsey overall gives great advice, especially in the area of budgeting. However, I don't agree with some things that he says, such as no credit and purchasing a home. Yeah. 100% agree, and I'll get into that a little bit too, and I'll show you how I've made millions of dollars by being in debt. I agree somewhat with Dave Ramsey's personal finance, but I'd never take his advice for business. Yeah, well, I think I understand why you feel that way. And look, I don't want to diss on this guy too bad, but I mean, if you're going to tell people don't buy a home, you're kind of opening yourself up for it. But yeah, this is terrible. Investment advice. It's not investment advice. It's anti-investment advice. So let's keep watching. And hey, by the way, check this out. If you guys want to know what I do, I also have a mentorship. And give you an example, I already have one of my mentees has made over $1 million already. And let me give you a quick clip of this, and then we'll keep moving.
It's really a perfect storm for making money in that respect.
Oh, well, that was it. He got cut short a little bit there. But anyways, I've got several students already within 1 year that have made anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 up to one guy's already made over $1 million. By his own count, in that video, basically, he talked about having $800,000 equity, $270,000 cash. And since that video, which is only a month ago, he just made another deal. He's making another probably between $300,000 and $400,000 on this deal he just made. I mean, and that's a solid profit for sure. I mean, he killed it, and you're not going to do that by trying to save. I mean, think about that. How are you going to pay cash for a $500,000 home? And imagine telling this guy to start. And I'm not mad. I don't want to say that he has to buy a $500,000 home, but how are you going to buy a home when in 5 years his wife just gets out of school, starts going, and now you're going to buy a home then? The interest rates right now on buying a home, they've been a record low as far as I'm concerned for the last 7 to 20 years. First house I bought, I paid 9 1/8%. It was crazy, and 10% on the ones prior to that. Actually, that was the first house that I lived in. So Christmas Holiday wrote, I started out paying loans for everything, but then I transitioned to paying cash. The properties I buy are only about $20,000 to $30,000 a piece. I fix them up and then I rent them out. What is your opinion? I think it's great that you have cash to take advantage and buy that. But here's where I think the boat kind of gets missed maybe I could chart this out if you want, and I just did a video, by the way, that makes it really simple. On a commercial center I bought last week, only because we did a graph. I'm thinking about this one, but I do it on everything I buy. Okay, I'll make it real simple. I buy something for $1 million, and I put $500,000 down. This since you're talking about rentals, and I put $500,000 down. I normally let's say 20% down. I put 20% down on $1 million property. So on my $200,000, the property returns 6% a year. So on 6% on my $200,000, I'm getting $12,000 a year on my $200,000. Okay. Now, on the other 80% of the property, the other 800,000, I'm also getting 6%. So I'm getting 48,000 a year. Okay, 48,000 a year return on the other 80%. Now, I got to pay interest, but if I'm only paying 3.5% interest, that's giving me the difference, 2.5% on that. So I'm making, I'm making 16 and, actually it'd be 16, so I'm making 17,200. So I'm making more on the borrowed money. I'm making $17,200 on the borrowed money, the 80% that I borrowed, and I'm making $12,000 a year on my cash. So this is why Christmas holiday, you want to borrow some money, because you're making money on the borrowed money. I mean, now it wouldn't make sense. If I had to borrow money at 6%, I would not be satisfied with the 6% return, because that's just a wash. That would be foolish. But when you get to make money on the borrowed money, it's foolish not to borrow the money. Now you'll weigh out, will this property stay rented and this, that, and that sort of thing. And generally it will. You just got to screen your tenants. In fact, listen, as long as you got advocates for people renting, Dave Ramsey's got a big following. What you can do is you can rent your home to somebody that listens to Dave, that thinks renting's the way to go. And he's got a lot of people he tells that to. So I'll tell you to buy the house, borrow against it, because then you can buy another one and keep getting more borrowed money and make money on that borrowed money. And then Dave will have people rent from you, and it'll be a win-win. So what else? Bob Harper says, Dave Ramsey gives great advice for people who don't have any self-control. But you can't create wealth in a reasonable time following Dave Ramsey. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't even think you can get wealthy. I mean, if you make $1 million, I mean, see, he probably makes $1 million plus a year. So if he's got $1 million a year coming in, obviously, he can just sit tight, save, and then he can buy something every once in a while. But even then, I can tell you, if Dave had eyes for real estate, he would be much wealthier today, because he's missing the boat on trying to pay cash for everything. Now he can be comfortable, but if you really make a lot of money from your job, you can do that. You're not going to be rich, but you're going to be comfortable, But again, if you don't make $1 million a year, then you better figure out another way to make a hell of a lot more money than that. So let's finish this up, and then he's got another one we can actually watch too if you want.
All that, but the whole point of the whole discussion is, if too big a chunk of your income is going out the door in house payment, you can't do nothing else. You're house poor. So if you'll just guard against that, you'll make the right decision. Okay?
Right. And 25% is pretty conservative. So if I try to keep on track there, we'll be good, even if we end up having to strain a little bit more for those couple years.
Exactly. The 25% is based on having done budgets for 30 years with people. And I'm saying where you are now is your projected income today. And based on that, we're going to do 25%. That gives you room for kids' college fund, car replacement, Christmas, insurance, start your 401k and baby step 4, and that kind of stuff. If you get up around 35%, you start to be in a strain. You can't, you say, oh, well, we'll put this vacation on a credit card, and you start rationalizing your butt off.
Okay. So, anyways, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're somebody with zero self-control, and I don't even know, I mean, yeah, I mean, I know that. There's people that just don't understand math. A lot of people are not how much, they're how much a month. Terrible mindset. But to give you an example, once you get on that roll of buying real estate and you start making money, and like I say, the first property I bought, I put 10% down. I made $100,000 on that property when I sold it 10 years later, but I was making money on it almost immediately because I had a tenant that was offsetting most of my mortgage, and I had a mortgage myself too. This is for a cabinet shop. And, I remember buying my first house. So check this out. The first house I bought, 9 1/8%, paid $145,000 for it. I probably put $25,000 down. So just say I had $120,000, payment. So $1,000 a month, basically, payment, and almost just hardly even knocking down the principal at all. Didn't matter. It would have cost me more than $1,000 a month to rent that house. The other thing is buying real estate right. And that's what I teach in my book, is buy real estate the way I do it. I buy it under market. And by buying it, when you buy it under market, that's your hedge about if things start to go down, or, if things get rough, you can afford to lower the people's rent, because, if they do get in a tough time. But you got to buy the real estate right. You got to buy it right. But you consider that I was paying more interest on a $100,000 mortgage 30 years ago, okay, I was paying 3 times more than you would pay on $100,000 a day. So you could borrow $300,000 today, and you would be paying less interest than I was paying for borrowing 1/3 as much. So anybody else got anything else to say about Dave or this stuff? Any questions on real estate? I'm looking for this other thing here, if I can find it. Anybody else? Who else gives advice like Dave Ramsey? Is there anybody out there that follows him closely? Or is there anybody that would fall into that category of, not being a good saver or being a squanderer of your money, not having self-control? I had a friend of mine. His wife was a total consumer. In fact, he divorced her. I mean, Dave Ramsey would be good for her. He told me that she would spend $2,500 just about every time she went to go shopping for clothes. I can't even imagine it. Okay, so let's see. David says, talk about HELOC versus refinance. Sure. Christmas holiday. The reason why Dave Ramsey is so afraid of debt is because he was younger when he got over leveraged and lost everything. Yeah, see, that's the problem. And I'm glad you said that, okay? Because you can't take advice from a jaded investor, okay? You cannot. My grandfather falls into that category. My grandfather had a job. He worked at the railroad. He thought he had the greatest job in the world. They would pack trains with ice. They had ice plants at one time along railroads. Obviously they had water for steam engines a long time ago. Well, later they would have to pack, they'd have to, trains going across the USA, it's melting, right? The ice is melting. Well, they'd have to pack certain crates with ice along the way. They had ice plants. Well, he thought, oh, yeah, well, people are always going to need fresh vegetables. Everything's going to need fresh food. Meat's going to be packed in ice forever. And then refrigeration came along, and it put him out of a job and put everybody that was in those plants out of a job. And so those things can happen, of course. Yeah, Suze Orman, I've never, this is why I don't know much about Dave Ramsey or Suze Orman. The advice is it's not investment advice. And it really, I think Christmas guy, hit it on the head. It's for people that just need the most basic. I remember a guy telling me he owed $1,000 on a credit card and he had $1,000 in savings. This is a long time ago. Somebody worked for me. And I said, well, just pay off your credit card. You're paying 21% interest on your credit card. I go, just take your cash that you got and pay it off. He goes, oh, no. He goes, that's my savings. I go, but yeah, but you can always draw it back on your credit card. And he couldn't understand it. He wouldn't do it. He was going to maintain his savings account and have a credit card that he owed the same amount on that was 21%. I go, you're going to make 21% on your money. How is she going to do that? He didn't get it. He didn't get it. And a lot of people don't. Maybe some of you watching don't. I don't know. Is mortgaging a house and then renting it out a good strategy to start off? Yeah, Bernie, that's kind of how it all starts. For the most basic investor, yeah. Look, it's the biggest single investment you're ever going to make is going to be your home. That's how it is for 99% of the people out there. So, but if you're working, you got a job, you can borrow money at an interest rate that is lower historically than just about ever. You can get long mortgages, you can get in with little down, and you get the benefit of making all that money. You buy it right, you buy it under market. Okay, now all of a sudden you make 10 grand. The first property I bought, somebody offered me $20,000 more for it. The day I bought it, within a day or two after I closed, or maybe a week after I closed it, guy pulled up, saw the for sale sign, and he said, hey, what do they want for it? I said, I bought it. I told him how much. He goes, I'll give you $20,000 right now. And the fact, it was probably worth even more than that. He would have bought it from me, paid me 20, and then he'd have sold it, and he'd probably made another 20 himself. And anyways, and we got a great video coming out. Hey, Ryan, when's that video coming out? Ryan, when is that video coming out? And what's that one called? How to make a deal without any money. Okay, yeah. So I got a video. called How to Make a Deal Without Any Money. This one's coming out Monday. So please, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notifications button, and come Monday. I'm leaving town, by the way, folks. I'll be doing my Zoom mentorship from California tomorrow. Those of you that are in the class. But we're starting to get some videos in the can. Now that I've got a good video crew and content manager, you're going to see a lot more content. So today is Fake Guru Friday. Doesn't necessarily mean it's fakes, but we're going to talk about gurus, self-proclaimed and others that, some, like I said, I would not call this guy a real estate guru. I mean, I don't even know if I like the term guru, but I would not call him a very good real estate investor. He is not going to get rich in real estate, obviously, but nothing against him. His advice for people, some of that advice is sound. So Tom, if a property is cash flowing, when do you decide when it's better to sell or just refinance for the next deal? Okay, if property is cash flowing, when do you decide when it's better to sell or just refinance? Okay, well, there's two things. That's a good question, Eagle. So here's the deal. If you bought it right and then the economy takes it up another 8% a few years, in a row. So now you got this equity. Well, you can kind of figure out, it's called APR, right? An annual percentage rate. And that, when the total APR factors in adding a new title fee, a new title policy, if you're going to borrow against it and everything else, you got to figure it out. And you got to weigh that out. It's just numbers. That's the thing, folks. That's the beauty of numbers. It's math. It's just logic. It's real easy to figure out, 5 minus 10 or 10 minus 5, you've got 5 left over. It's not that hard to figure out. And it's kind of like that. You can do the math on if you can borrow. I mean, listen, it's possible, depending on the interest rate that you got, Eagle One, that it's cash flowing. You could look at it and go, gee, I'm paying a lot of interest. I mean, I had houses that I was paying 7% on, and I refied them because I could get it down to 3. Or I just took a line of credit that at 3.5 on, $1 million building where I could take a couple $1 million and I could pay off some things. But there's, it's a good problem to worry about your gains. Hey, Ellie, glad you're in here. So glad to see you in here, Ellie. But so back to you, Eagle One. When you find a deal, okay, so let me read this question again. Tom, if a property is cash flowing, when do you decide it's better to sell or just refinance for the next deal? Well, if you can get your refi in place before you pull the trigger, or here's the thing I like most of all, is if you can get yourself a line of credit against that property. So you can reason with the line of credit against that property. It's cash flow and it's still going to cash flow. You get a line of credit in place. Your payment's the same. The only difference is you have this money sitting there on standby that when you need it, you can pull the trigger. So it's not a refi. You get a line of credit ready where they say, yeah, you can borrow $50,000 against this and we're approving you for $50,000. Now you have a checkbook that you can just draw $50,000 when you need it. Now you just study the market, find another property that's under market. In other words, if it's worth $200, you'll pay, say, $150, or you'll pay $120 for it. You can even pay $100 for it. You never know what's going to happen. If you dig and look, you will find properties that are under market. And my book shows you how. I've been doing it for many, many years. And so that's what you do. You get your money ready. And, if you're going to borrow, then, you get pre-qualified for, find out what the bank will loan you to buy another property. And in large parts, that's going to be what the return is. Because the next property you buy, you could call it your home. You can say, I'm going to buy this home. Somebody's going to rent the one I'm moving out of, or vice versa. You can say, I'm going to rent this home that I'm buying. That's all good too. So it's just numbers, but get your credit line in order. Get a credit line. Some people make the mistake of sucking the equity out of their property, and they pull like 50 or 100 grand out, and they don't even have a deal for it. And then it's sitting there waiting. Well, that's not the way to do it. Get the credit ready to be used so you can use it. I have lines of credit for several $1 million. I can write a check for $3 or $4 million if I want. And the reason I can do that is because I did exactly what I'm telling you to do. Have your, it's an equity line of credit. So I think that covers you. If it doesn't, just ask something else. So Ellie, glad you're back in here. It says, hi, Tom. I got out of debt many years ago because of Dave's advice. Stayed out of debt. I don't follow him anymore because it doesn't work for me. Ellie's in my class too. She's a real go-getter. Life sidelines you. I don't think she's made a purchase quite yet, although we haven't caught up here late here, Ellie, but I know you're going to. We got a lot of great people in the class. By the way, Ellie, if you haven't seen, Ron Douglas has made $1 million this year in the class, and we got other people who've made several $100,000. So I'm very excited about the mentorship. So Yoga Play Life, it says, I don't get how anyone can afford anything. It's horrible out there. If you are average person, wholesaling is dead too. Listen, I don't like what I see with wholesaling. I don't like it. What I see out there, what people are calling wholesaling, is dead. No one is going to sell for less right now. Now, there you're wrong. No, there you're 100% wrong. Let me explain. Yoga, listen, get my book, okay? Seriously. I'll buy it back from you myself if you don't think it's fantastic. Or, by the way, the book right here, over here in the corner, you can get this book for, you can start reading it for free. You can read the first 3 chapters for free right now. Go to Amazon, Kindle, Audible. You can listen to it for free, the first part of it, or you can read it for free one way or another. They give you the samples, or you can stick your neck out there and spend $10 on the Kindle, and you can have the whole thing right in front of you. But I'm telling you, this book could be worth $1 million to you. Okay, it's already worth $1 million to several of my students that are on track to make $1 million and already have made $1 million. So, and the book's only been out 18 months. So let's see. Greg Harry wrote, "How did you go from buying rental houses to an apartment? Which one was easier?" That's a great question. So I love houses. I buy houses under market and sell them for more. If it's really got legs and the economy's going, I'm selling nearly all my houses right now because of this, because of the shortage. It's driving the prices up. I'm making an extra $200,000 on most of the houses that I'm selling right now. They're selling for $200,000 more than they would have sold last year. So houses that I sold for $400,000 last year, and I have a bunch of them in the same neighborhoods, I'm selling for $600,000. And I don't think they're going to be worth $600,000 in about a year. I think they're going to level off and start going down a little bit, or level off for sure. So it makes sense to sell now. But back to your question, how do you go from buying rental house to apartment, and which one is easier? It's economies of scale. So let me put it this way. If I've got an apartment building, and I can show you guys some apartment buildings. Let me do that. I'm going to show you an apartment building right now and I'll explain to you why it's so good. And when I say the economies of scale, more exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we go. You see Google Earth behind me here. And this is the thing, by the way, folks. There's so many fake, phony gurus out there that don't know what the hell they're talking about. You got to be very careful who you listen to. If they've never done it, they're teaching you a theory. Here we go. So look, I'm going to show you an apartment building that I bought. And I bought several on this street. And I made a pile of money on it. Millions. Okay, I made millions. And guess what? I bought this thing for about the price of what houses were at the time. So check this out. And this also goes to my book. I talked to you about real estate barbells, how I buy up around my home, okay, like around my home, and then I buy up around my work, and then I buy in between the two. And so it ends up looking like a barbell. You just got one big ring of homes and properties in this area, and one big ring of homes in this area, and then the thoroughfare, as you get wealthier, the thoroughfare's got the big buildings, the commercial buildings. Then you start buying those up. But it starts to resemble a barbell. I can even show you with this map too, actually. So look here. This is a building I bought right here. Can you see this one right here? This is 21 units. I paid $210,000 for it. It's crazy. And at that building, I sold it for $55,000 a unit. I paid $10,000 a unit. So there's $1 million right there, right? Sounds right. Yeah. But right about $960,000 profit on that one. And then let's go down to the street if we can on this thing, because I bought a lot more than that too. See, I'm having trouble here finding the oh well. All right, we'll just bring it in this way. All right. Okay, so additionally, I bought this building here across the street. This was 13 units, and you'll read about this in my book too, by the way. So I bought these two buildings together for $340,000. I sold them for $1.9 million or $1.8 million, something like that, right? Let's do the math on that. 34 units times 55,000. Yeah, sounds like about $1.8 million. Okay, and then I also bought this building next door. This is 24 units. This was called the Plaza del Norte. And anyways, and this is like a C-class property. It's probably actually turned into more of a B-class now because the air has kind of gotten a little bit better in some ways. But I mean, I was making, I bought this for $340,000, and almost immediately I was making $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month income, okay, just off these two buildings alone. Then I bought this one. I bought this building, I think, for, I know what I paid for this because this is an interesting story too, and you'll hear about it some other day. But I bought this building from a professor from a university. I paid him $400,000, I think $400,000 even, and I turned around and sold this for $560,000. I made $160,000 on this in a relatively short time, but because of the financing that I got, the owner carried financing that I put in place, I got to sell the loan that I put in place for like another $30,000. So even though I sold it for $560,000, really I sold it for $590,000. So I made $190,000 on this. Plus, on day one, I was making, I don't know, $1,800. $2,000 a month, something like that. It was pretty good. And these are the kinds of things that you can do when you get into real estate and when you take on debt. You make money on the debt. And it just builds and builds and builds. Okay, Yoga says, Yoga Play Life. When are your classes in your mentoring for your students? Okay, so look, Yoga Life, what it is this. When I created the mentorship, I'll show you guys mentorship too real quick. I'm really proud of my students. It's a really cool thing. Okay. This is going to testimonials. Let me see here. Same area. Oh yeah, this guy's a kick too. I got to play this for you. I'll come back and play this for you. But right now, let's talk about the mentorship real quick. So the mentorship. When you go into my class, the first thing you do is going to get about 3 hours of video. And I teach everything, by the way. And here's the difference between me and a lot of these snake oil salesmen. I teach everything because I know what I'm doing. I can teach everything. I don't sub out the expertise. A lot of these guys say, I have experts I personally trained. And then you're calling up and you're talking to some people that are paid $15, $20 an hour that don't know shit about real estate and certainly can't advise you. But the deal is, you go in and you're going to get a series of classes in the mentorship, and you'll get into the members area. When that happens, you'll get into the members area. And once you're in the members area, you'll be aware of the meetings. But these are the courses and the classes, all 100% taught by me. You go through your first week, your second week, third week, and your fourth week. And by the time that third or fourth week, you're going to be anxious. You're going to be trying to get rolling on stuff. And sometimes I got to say, well, just wait a minute, just wait just a little bit. You're almost there. And then every Saturday, or nearly every Saturday, I go live from 2 to 10. And also, by the way, when you get into these work lessons, everything's chapterized. So in other words, I have people scroll back through it and then they chapterize the videos so that if there's something that you missed or you didn't quite get, you can go back and get it. But there's just the class, and then I do a lot of stuff in front of the whiteboard, take hundreds of questions from students. They're going to ask the same questions that you asked. So you get all the benefit of this and the benefit to keep going back to it. There's other stuff in here. I've got calculators back in here. This is in the hidden area. So you can do things for fixed rates, you can do interest only, you can reverse engineer mortgages with the deal calculator and different things, and then we've got a forums things. I got downloads where you get some purchase agreement form, target evaluations. Believe me, this is like you get You'll get more out of this. You'll get more out of my book. Okay, just my book alone for $10 is worth more than most of these classes that are $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. Because quite frankly, most of the things haven't worked out for people, and there's plenty of people in my class that have actually thrown money at other things, and they're the ones that give me this feedback. How they're just so mad at themselves that they pissed money away on these phony baloney people. So let's get back to questions. And by the way, if you guys want, I could take a call if somebody wants to call. I'm by myself. Darius had to leave, so I'm not sure how well how smoothly it's gonna go. Okay, so look, Greg Harry says, let me jump back up here a little bit to Bernie Sanders. So you're saying you get money through debt and purchase assets and then pay off the debt or keep the debt. Okay. I'm saying don't be afraid of debt. I make money on the debt, okay? When I buy a building, like I say, I could buy a building, I could put 25% down. I'm going to get let's say I get 7%. I usually get more than that. Let's just say I get 7% interest on my 25%, 500,000. So I get 35,000 a year on my 25% down because the overall asset has a return of 7%. Now, I borrowed 3 times that, so now I still have 1.5 million. Guess what? It's still making 7% too. So now I'm getting another. That's 105,000. Now I'm making 105,000 a year on the borrowed money. Okay, and let me explain. There's 105,000 coming in at 7%. Now I'm borrowing that money from the bank. So I have to give half of that 105,000 back to the bank. So their bank's going to get 52,500. So now I'm making 52,500 on the borrowed money, and I'm making 35,000 on my money that I put down, the 25%. So now I'm making $87,500 a year. Okay, I'm making $87,500 a year on 500,000. Okay, so if you do the math on that, now you're pushing, what is that, 20, almost 20%, getting close there. 40%. So, no, sorry, having a moment here. I guess you'd be getting about 16%. So now I'm making 16% on my money, on my cash on cash. I usually just use the example that I used, but I'm making more money on the borrowed money than I am on my cash. And that's why I say Dave's method is, you're not even going to get rich. You're just going to save your money. Listen, I can calculate on a calculator. If I, when I used to work and when I made $15 an hour a long time ago, and I've been self-employed since I was 19, I could go, okay, I'm making $600 a week. I'm making, roughly $3,000, about $3,600. And then, they take out so much for taxes, this, that, and the other. Just say I got $20,000 a year left over. So it's going to take me 50 years to save $1 million. 50 years if I'm going to make that much money. So it's depressing when you figure out how much money you can save. It'll depress you. So you got to start thinking, because if you're not getting wealthy and you're not getting rich and you're not getting where you want to get, you better do something different, because if you don't do something different, you're going to get the same result forever that you're getting right now. But so there's different ways of making money. There's buying assets that produce income, which is of course what I do with my investments, like apartment buildings, commercial buildings, offices, industrials. I have all those types of properties, and they pay great. I'm buying a building should be in about 3.5 weeks. I'm buying a building right now. I'm paying $1.7 million for it. It has a 7.5% return. I think I calculated $144,000 a year net income to me. I'm paying cash for it, but it's temporary. I'm paying cash for it because then I'm doing what's called a 1031 exchange, and I'm going to take 3 assets, 3 houses that are worth about the same. 3 houses that are worth about $1.7 million. Those monies will be moved into the purchase of that $1.7 million, and it'll pay me my cash back. I'll defer taxes, and then I'll have, I'll have another $12,000 a month income just from that one property. Okay. And let's do the math on this again. The 3 houses that I bought, guess what? I borrowed 80% of the money on all 3 of those. So when you look at the fact that I bought those houses for, let's see, 130, 200, so there's 360, $500,000. So I bought something for $500,000 with $100,000 down. So I put $100,000 down, and I bought these 3 homes, and I'm adding them all up collectively. That, then they paid down. They paid down over the years. The tenants paid me rent, paid those things down. They're almost completely paid for. All of them are paid for, actually. And so now my $100,000 investment, say 15 years later, it's where we're at now, 15 years later is now worth $1.7 million and giving me $12,000 a month. Think about how compare that to your job. I don't care if you're a doctor. Compare that to a doctor. And I've got doctors, double E's out there if he's watching. He's a doctor. And believe me, he's miserable right now doing all this telemedicine because he's not making near as much money as he used to. Okay, let's go back to, who else? I don't want to miss anybody here. Yoga play. How should I also factor in my income into what I can afford to buy? I have $35,000 cash and I make only $60,000 a year. I can save more, though, by the end of the year. Well, listen, you just need to take that $35,000 that's not making any money and go buy something. Buy something that makes sense. I mean, if you could buy, I don't know where you're at. Listen, there's a fourplex could be $1 million. A fourplex could be, 140,000 or 100,000, depending on where you live. But I'll give you an example. One of the guys in my mentorship, he's in an area that's kind of a little part of a low rent area, kind of, and I had a similar place in Idaho, and he is buying places for like $60,000, and some of them are duplexes, $60,000 duplex, putting $10,000 in it. So now he's got $70,000 in it, $20,000 in his pocket. Put 10 down, put $10,000 in it, and they're worth 140 when he's done, on average, 140. Then he refis it, and he pulls out $100,000, or not $100,000, but he pulls out. He owes 60. He pulls out about $30,000 cash, and now he owes 90. But he's got cash. He's got more cash in his hands than when he started, and he's got income coming in. And then he just repeats. He's got 27 properties now. I don't know what they're all, but they're not all duplexes. Some are duplexes, some are houses. He just made a deal. He bought 7 houses at once. On a I think 50 acres or 20 acres. Don't hold me to that, but it's a decent amount of acreage. So yeah, so I like I said, by the way, so let's go to the mentorship. You guys got to see this because this is really cool. This is actually one of my best. Let me see this testimonials. One of them that I like a lot. Oh, there's the book, by the way. I guess I should. Okay, this guy here. So check this out. This is a Jeb Fuller, and he's talking about. Let's see. I don't know. He's done a few on me, but he's talking about the book, and this is a guy that's probably about my age, been around a long time, and he actually is an experienced guy. But let's just show you what he says.
Hello, I'm here to recommend a book. I've never recommended a book before. I bought hundreds of books from Amazon. In this office, there's probably 200 books on real estate. But if you're looking to invest in real estate, this is the book to buy. I'm a real estate educator, licensed in many states as a broker, appraiser, and a real estate educator for appraiser and broker and salespeople. I do investment classes. This is the best $10 you could invest in right here. This book by Tom McKay. I've never met Tom. I'm on the East Coast. He's on the West Coast. It's practical. Put it into practice. You can make $1 million. I've done these. Many of the things are in this book. Our lives are uniquely parallel. I've even sold a fire truck like Tom has. But he puts it in the words where it's simple to understand. You put it into practice. And just remember this, it's not overwhelming. You get through this book and you've got everything you need. Almost everything. You got to know value. Like I said, I'm an appraiser. But Tom explains, finding out the value and learning the value. But put the practices he has in this book and you're set. You're on your way. Tom, great book. Hope it sells a ton of copies. And I wish I wrote it. Thank you for providing us with this book.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that testimonial. And like I said, it's the first time he's ever done a testimonial on a book, and he was that inspired to do so. But and I know he's right. I know the book is. Listen, I've lived it. A lot of people can't talk with the confidence that I have because they haven't had the experience. They haven't lived the life. They can't back up what they're talking about. I bought hundreds of properties. I've only lost money on one for sure. I lost money on one. One was pretty close. But you got to just treat your money like it's a tool. It's the most important tool you have. And if you don't listen to, but Ben Malla is another great guy. Ben Malla, I like Ben Malla a lot. He definitely, he started later than I did. His hair younger than me. And he's richer than me. And I thought, well, why the hell is this guy richer than me? And it's because he had a mentor, okay? I didn't have a mentor. I had to learn everything the hard way. So self-taught and then just purely experience has gotten me to where I'm at. And so you get the benefit of all my experience. But one of the things that I bring to the table that most people cannot is that I started with zero. I can help people that have a net worth of anywhere from $0 to $100 million. No problem. Because I'm anywhere, I've been from zero to tens of millions of dollars over the course of my lifetime. And so it's just not hard. But it just takes a little discipline. So don't forget my question. Okay, Greg Harry, what did I miss? Is that a good idea? What's the question? Okay, Greg Harry. Okay, he said, I've heard Ben Malla say he started out buying ghetto, undervalued apartments and then converting them to Section 8 housing, and then selling the apartment at a higher price based on higher rents. Yeah, of course that's a good idea. But look at the key word here. Okay, the key word that Ben used is undervalued, okay? He didn't even have to fix them up. He could have made money on them just flipping them because they were undervalued. And a lot of times undervalued assets, the ones that I recognize, it can be one that, if you go to my channel, by the way, hit subscribe. I promise you, dig through my channel. You're going to find something you love in there. Like he said, I flipped fire trucks. I flipped all kinds of things too. But the big money's in the real estate. That's where you want to get at. And Ben, like myself, we own a lot of retail properties now, and there's a reason for that. It kind of goes back to the apartments and the apartments and the houses. And I feel like I didn't quite answer that question earlier, by the way. Sorry to jump around so much, but the reason apartments are better than, say, houses is because the landscaping cost about the same on one house as it does on one apartment building that's, say, 20, 30 units. I mean, those 34 units I showed you earlier, I mean, they have less grass than most of my houses and less hedges. So there's less maintenance with the yard itself. Okay, the other thing is there's a hell of a lot more money coming in to pay for things when you need to replace things. So anyways, it kind of goes back to that is you just say, and even buying up houses in the same neighborhood, when you have if you're taking care of the landscaping, the guy comes by and he just pushes his mower around the neighborhood. He doesn't have to load it in the truck and drive to all these 5-10 different places. I literally buy up properties in the same subdivision. I really concentrate, and that's one of the reasons I do so, is it saves me money in other ways. What else we got here? Is anybody buying anything? A lot of people are terrified right now to buy. Listen, you should always be terrified of paying full price, and that's why the secret is buying under market. You have to buy under market. If you don't, it's foolish. Listen, property values can go down. That's why it's so important that when you buy under market. And it's a little bit scary in these times in as much as things are kind of, there's a shortage. Like somebody said earlier, it's impossible to buy anything. Well, it's not impossible, because let me tell you, the things that bring about successful deals or deals under market, it can be divorce, it can be just, drugs, depression, people getting old and moving on, retiring, people that are wealthy that just want to get rid of assets. They don't really care about dragging every cent out. I tell people all the time about, I ran across the street when I saw a house come up for sale, right across the street from the house that I owned. I should have been already knocking on their door, but I went on vacation. When I came back, there was a for sale sign. I thought, oh, what the hell? I mean, I first thing I did is immediately called on the sign, said, "What's up?" They said it's already sold. So the house went up for sale while I was on vacation, and they've already signed a contract to sell it. And when I talked to the agent, he sold it for about $150,000 under market. I said, "Well, no wonder it sold. You sold it too cheap." And I said, "Listen, I'll give her $50,000 more. Tell her right now." He said, "Oh, well, I'm not going to do that." And I said, "Okay, well, I'll do it." So I went straight across the street, walked over the door, knocked on the door, introduced myself, said, "Hey, I wish I'd introduced myself before. See the house up for sale. And I understand you got a deal going and you've been offered, $175,000. I said, I said, "Look, I'll give you, if you haven't signed it yet, don't." I said, "I'll give you $50,000 more." And she looked at me and she burst into tears crying. And I was like, "Whoa." And she said, "My husband left me and I don't want anything in this place." She didn't care about the money. She just wanted to get the hell out of there. And I said, "Well, if you change your mind, you want another $50,000. And told her I'm sorry, for the, the breakup. But she didn't care. So don't think. Divorce, people liquidate assets cheap when they're getting in a divorce. And that's just how it goes. And, people spend $100,000 fighting each other in a divorce to split $200,000. It's crazy. And but there's always opportunities in every city in the USA. The same things that bring about deals happen everywhere. Those things happen everywhere that bring about deals. So it doesn't matter what city and even what country you're in, unless you can't buy property and resell it, you can do it. If my area is just way too expensive, should I just? No, has nothing to do with it. Yoga, it's a common question, but listen, go get my book, and you'll ask better questions from this point forward. These aren't even great questions. I'm not knocking your questions, but I just want you to know it doesn't matter. It's relative. Every city, everywhere. You live in San Francisco, where the houses are $4 million on average. Manhattan Beach, $4 million on average. You can make money everywhere. I bought a beach house for $400,000 a long time ago. There's so many lessons I can tell you of deals I've just missed and other ones that I've gotten. I bought properties and made, several $1 million. I bought properties and made $140,000 in 3 months, $60,000 in a few days. If you get a chance, like I say, go to my channel. Subscribe right now. Look, everybody, if you're in here and you got an interest rate, subscribe to my channel. I'm probably the least known guy with the most expertise, and that's just the truth. But go to my videos and you'll see the properties that I've purchased, the profits that I've made. And this is over 40 years I've been doing this, since I was 19 years old. And I just want everybody to experience the same thing I have. Like I said, it's the best thing in the world to not have to worry about money. I've been there. I've been in tight spots. I know I came from a family where we were on welfare. My dad would get laid off all the time. He was an aircraft guy. And so I know about, powdered milk, free lunches at school, shitty clothes, Goodwill, all that stuff. I've been there. So let's see. Sebastian wrote something. Delta, if you can find a property under market, I'm sure you can find an investor. Yeah, and that's a good point. I'm glad Sebastian brought that up. You don't necessarily have to have money. I'll go back to the, where's Google Earth if I still have it open. Yeah, so look, just to give you guys a quick idea of things that you can do. Let me go to projects here. Somewhere there's projects. Here we go, projects. Okay, so check this out. I'm going to go over to where I first started out. Now, this is crucial because, now take a look. These blue dots represent properties that I bought. Now, and this nothing even close to complete. But in this area that's not far away, I bought up, I think, 70 lots. So it looked like a barbell from here to here. These are properties I bought, and then I bought a bunch of properties in this Leona Valley area. Actually, it was over here. I think it was around this lake right here. Anyways, it was over here. So just a quick tour of some things. Let me see here. Actually, here's a divorce house I bought. Look at this one. Bear with me. I bought this big old, it was kind of like a big old Brady Bunch house. and it was filled with kids and two families that got together that married and then sadly divorced. And then it became my bachelor pad. Why isn't it going to it? I don't understand why. Okay, here we go, hopefully. Yeah, so check this out. Okay, here's a house that I bought. This is when I was 25 years old. It's a hell of a house for a 25-year-old. Okay? It's this big diamond-shaped lot. I'll kind of use the ruler to show you. Went from here to here, to here, to here, to here. And there you go. You can see, about 11,000 square footage-wise, what would that be? It seems like it was a third of an acre. Yeah, a quarter acre. But it was a big old diamond-shaped lot. It had a kidney-shaped pool, had a sport court over here, had grapevines, had 50 cypress trees going all the way around it. It was like 3,500 square feet. I remember I put in this brick. I put in this brick mailbox here. But anyways, this is the first house that I bought for myself to live in. This is the one that I paid $145,000 for it. And listen, I was 25 years old, and people were saying, "What's he doing? He must be pushing drugs. He's selling drugs or something." These other people are like, "How the hell is this guy buying real estate?" I wasn't an agent. I was just buying property. And in fact, that was when a buddy of mine said, "Tom, you own this and this, this and this." And I said, "Yeah." And I owned a cabinet shop for 9 years at that time. He said, "Why are you even still doing this? You don't have to do it. Just sell it." And I thought, you're right. And I sold my business when I was 28 years old, for like $250,000. But I'd already was a millionaire in real estate, and I didn't need any of this anymore. I didn't need to do that kind of work anymore. And so I know how quickly your life can change on this stuff. But again, those are the things that you can do. And let's pop back out here and go to the first. Here's the first property I bought. And look, and all those blue dots are properties that I've owned. So look, and back to your wholesaling stuff. Look, I bought this building right here, $110,000, 19 years old, hair down to my shoulders, and it actually came with a vacant lot here. It was supposed to be parking for this. The guy that bought it from me was a little smarter than me. He realized he could build a building there, which, in all honesty, I don't know that I would have built a building back then at that time, but I wish I would have. I could get another rental out of it. But anyways, so on this one here, somebody offered me $20,000 more than I paid for it. That got me inspired. And then I kept looking. And this is why I say you don't have money. Have money. This building here that you see right over my shoulder, right here. Okay, this is another building that it was a hardware store, and the people went out of business, and they weren't making their payment. And found out they were going into foreclosure. Well, I got a hold of them before they were in foreclosure, and I think I gave them $500, and I took their position, went to the people that they were owed, and I said, "Look, can we agree? I'll pay you." And they go, "Well, we're just going to foreclose." I said, "What if I pay you in 30 days? I said, "Okay." And so they gave me 30 days to recover the deal, and I just borrowed the money from somewhere else. And I bought this place. No, I take it back. I'm confusing deals. I needed money to buy this one. So I went to my old boss, John Brooks, and I said, "Hey, John, I got a great deal. Where do you go when you don't have money? You go to your old boss." And I said, "Look, I got this great deal. Come take a look." And look at this. This is a big building. And he came over. He said, "Tommy, this is a great deal." And he said, he goes, "But I don't want a partner." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he says, "How about I give you $20,000 and I just buy it by myself?" And I was like, "That's a fantastic idea." So that's what I learned about. You guys, some of you guys call it wholesaling, whatever. I just call it's an assignment. So I assigned him my interest. I let him take the contract over. He gave me $20,000. He probably made $50,000 to $70,000 on this deal, and I made 20 like that. It was a great deal. And so again, I'm not your Dave Ramsey advice guy by any means. And and then what's also remarkable is around the street is I ended up buying lots of other stuff. In fact, I bought this property right here. This one I bought from Mission Linen. Again, I was under 25 years old, and I made a deal to buy this one from Mission Linen. They're out of Santa Barbara. And and you'll learn about how to negotiate. That's one of the things I'm really good at, and I teach you that in my book. But this one here, I made a deal on for I think $110,000. Sold it for $210,000. Maybe I got it for $95. Or no, I got it for $105, and I sold it for $210. So I made $100,000 on this thing, and that was in just a short time, a very short time. And so just think about, how much $100,000 can help you. And like I was saying, you get something, you flip it, and then you've got cash, you got opportunities, and you won't be afraid to borrow money from the bank, and you should never be afraid. So, somebody's writing here. Do you think Dave is a fake guru? No, I don't. I don't think he knows what he's talking about with real estate. He's not a real estate investor. Let me just put it that way. I want to be nice. I would talk to Dave anytime. But he's advice for very basic advice. But if this idea of pay cash for stuff, I could have never paid cash for any of this. I couldn't have bought my first building. I didn't even have the $10,000 to buy my first building. I had to make a deal to move in. And I got a 6-month escrow, and that's what bought me 6 months' time, where I saved up enough money by not paying rent and living in the building and working in the building, that I got my down payment, which was $10,000, which is I did that first building on owner financing. Again, something you're going to learn about if you get my book. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to talk about, but I think this is it's already gone longer than I expected. But please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and when you get time, go over to the channel, take a look, and go to the playlist. You can look at fixer-uppers. I've done hundreds of fixer-uppers. I've flipped land. Land is one of my favorite properties, favorite things to do, is buy and sell land. The good thing about land is especially if you want, some of you talk about wanting to be an agent, is that when people come in to buy a piece of land, they know more about the property than you do, more than likely. And so all you got to do is just get the listing, and you'll do well. I'm looking to see if I can find something else here, share with you. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, hey, have a quick look at this and hit that subscribe button.
It's really a perfect storm for making money in that respect.
But in 1 year, his portfolio has gone from zero to $1.6 million. You really got 30, 22?
Yeah, I think I got 27, yeah.
27 properties. You got 27 properties. John, you have to buy that. That is a great property.
I just closed on 2 houses yesterday. It's worth $250. I bought that one for $170.
My first millionaire student.
I don't want to screw around. I don't want to play games going back and forth. What is the absolute bottom dollar? And I'll tell you if I'm going to buy it or not.
All right. So, hey, folks, thanks for hanging out here. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I never steer you wrong. Anybody wants to get into a certain topic, or you want me to cover anything, or some of you guys are pointing to some Phil Falcone, I don't know, I'll take a look at him. Anybody, listen, all I can tell you is if somebody's going to tell you about how to invest, I mean, it's just common sense. They ought to have a history of success. And don't just take their word for it. They got to show you. They need to be able to show you stuff. You can go look back in the history. Every property I ever point to, you can go back in the history. You'll see my name on it. I owned it. I'm the one who negotiated the deal, bought the deal, flipped the deal. And that's the kind of mentoring you need. And that's the kind of advice you need. And listen, you don't have to take my mentorship, but certainly I would start with buying the book. If you have any interest at all, buy the book. And if you have a passion beyond that, then take the mentorship. For some of you, it's a no-brainer. You make great money. You're 30 to 50 years old. The people between 30 and 50 years old, they are the rock stars in my groups. They are the ones that they realize, I'm worried about my future. I have a wife. I have kids. I know I'm not going to work forever. I need to start figuring out how to be able to take care of myself without having to use my hands, and stare at a screen all day or whatever you do, or drive a truck. And we'll take a look at Chandler Smith too. But no, look, in conclusion, no, I do not think Dave is, I mean, if he called himself a real estate investor, I would say he's a fake fake real estate investor, or not a good one, or something like that. But he does give decent information regarding basic stuff. You know, don't buy it. Yeah, don't let a house cost you 50% of your income. Yeah, I mean, to me that's like really dumbed down advice. But I realize some people need that kind of advice, so I'm not knocking it. Anybody that's tempted to, be house poor, as he called it, that's a bad idea. But if you can buy a home and keep your income, your payment to somewhere around the same as it'd be for what you're paying rent, then I see no loss. I think you're fine. So I got to run, folks. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Thanks.